The problem as well is
Yeah.
that everything, all of that first 20 or so minutes is basically one long, consistent and continuous action scene. And it's by far, I think, the longest of any introduction. Most of the indie films start with some form of action scene. This is, I think, by far the longest one.
It has to be,
And
yeah.
you start to lose the point and the purpose of an action scene if it just never stops. Like, action is supposed to punctuate. It's not supposed to be the default setting, which very occasionally slows down for 5 seconds for characters to say two words to each other, and then, oh, we're back to the action scene again. And it's probably the least effective. Well, it's a toss up between this and Crystal Skull as to which is the least effective introduction of the MacGuffin, because in the original, I think all of the original three films, it opens with the search for a MacGuffin of a type, but that MacGuffin is not the MacGuffin of the film. That MacGuffin is just, this is the quest he's already on.
Yeah.
He's already done the work that's led him here. And then we can go back to a much more slow, civilized build-up, usually in the university, that's when the plot is majorly introduced. And then you get to see him begin the quest and the puzzle from the beginning again, whereas this one is just, he's walking on, he's gone for another MacGuffin. Oh, he's luckily found the thing that the film is all going to be anchored around. That's now done, and the rest of it is not going to be the nice, classy, glitzy, glamorous 1920s, 1930s setup in a posh university. It's going to be miserable. Like, everything about what comes next is just so depressing and sad. And I just think that this is what I think people really mean when the film didn't need to be made, because if you're going to do this with Indiana Jones, if you are going to reduce him to the status we're about to see him in, then you've basically said, look, this guy who has been throughout your entire life this pinnacle of both class and sophistication and also action and physical ability, now he's got none of those things and he is himself depressed. What are we even supposed to be aspiring to here? Like, the point of Indiana Jones is that this is a character you want to embody. This is someone that you really want to grow up to be like, not someone that makes you fear growing up, which is now what he does.
So that's what we may as well talk about the scene in just a sec, but you can guarantee they would tell you that all the things we're about to highlight about what's wrong with this is intentional. They'd be like, of course, that's the idea. And we're going to subvert it as the film goes on, in terms of like, no, just because he's old doesn't mean he's useless, doesn't mean he's an artifact, blah, blah, blah. But it's just like, we'll get to what your film has to say about this state of being, but you did not have to make this the state of being, which, to be honest with you, I guess I completely forgot the trailer, because this is shown, at least partially in there. But in the cinema, when it's panning through his room, and you can see like his sort of war-related and like religious, lots of different things across his life, across his desk. There's a picture of Marion as well. It's just like, okay. Then it pans. You can see Indy asleep in his recliner chair in his underpants. He said indie pants. His underpants. Watching TV in his room is a complete mess, and it's such a fucking image I don't want in my head. It's like, can you not?
It was immediately like, oh, for fuck's sake, really? It's like, oh.
And not only that, music plays, and he wakes up and he does the old man, like, whoa, oh god, what's going on? Where am I? It's like, oh.
Why is the only idea that you have for an old man that he's cranky? Why is that like the only conception that you have?
Because, I mean, it just proves Lucasfilm hasn't learned a damn thing.
No.
They've been doing it for 10 years now. I mean, they didn't learn anything from The Last Jedi, didn't take any advice from the fans, didn't care. They're completely disconnected, and they're just making a product, and that's all this is. It's a product, and thankfully, it's going to cost them hundreds of millions of dollars. This thing's got
like it.
I love how the flop was called for this so far before like any information had come out about any audiences. It's just like, you're done. You've killed it. It's over.
In 5 minutes, I'm going to get a little ahead, but we can backtrack. We got a sad, empathetic, possibly alcoholic, dead son, served divorce papers, retiring, and all the kids are bored by him when he was adored in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And that's right away.
Like, he's bored as well. I think that's the more depressing thing is that he's bored by all of this.
And he was never bored, ever.
Yeah, the Indiana Jones story itself has an example of an older man who is not very kind to younger people, but is not bored by his own life. It's his own father. Like, we know what an older Indiana Jones is kind of like. It's Henry Jones Sr. And he is out of time, but he's not disinterested in the world or in his studies or his profession. In fact, he's more interested than ever. That's the thing that creates the antipathy between him and Indy is that he doesn't find young people very interesting, but that's not because he doesn't find life interesting. That's because he just doesn't think young people have the kind of intelligence to be worth his time. So you can see, because we'll go on to do the, again, jumping ahead, this is Moon Day, so they're celebrating the moon landing, and Indy has no time for any of this stuff. But that's a factor of his overall depressed state of seeing no worth in life. Whereas I could absolutely see an older Indiana Jones in the model of Henry Jones Sr. being, well, the moon landing is not as interesting as history. It's a lump of rock in space. But this is really fascinating. Whereas in Indy's case, it's, I don't care about that. I also don't care about this. Can someone please kill me?
And he doesn't show much of any understanding of it. He does have a throwaway line about how it's like going to Reno. That's about it. But you'd be nice to hear more. I actually thought for a moment, as foolish as I am, that the theme of the film was going to be a sense of like the future versus the past. And you might be like, yeah, that is what it's about. It's like, no. I mean, like the interests in space pushing us so far forward that we forget how we got to where we are, sort of thing. And plenty of insights about that, characters that represent it, and then an appreciation of looking to the future while appreciating the past, that sort of thing. I don't think we got anything to do with that. We spent most of the film fucking with Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I don't think like I could draw a lot of it thematically about any of that, especially not with the third act and where we go. I don't know what the fuck I was supposed to make of all of that crazy shit, but we'll get there. But yeah, as to what Gary and Lilbatuma highlighting there, they really did tick every possible box to make him disheveled, despondent, like decadent. He's just this absolute ruination version of Indiana Jones. They're just like, did you need to do this? Could you have had him so that he was normal and also a little bit sad that everybody's so interested in space that they're not as interested in archaeology? That's perfectly easy to tell as a story without making him a zombie. You don't have to do this. An embarrassing zombie too.
Everything around him is poorer as well. So, if you remember the settings of the original one, the university is big and it's grand, and his house is quite large, if I recall, and it's well adorned and it's well furnished, and he's clearly quite an affluent guy. And in this one, he lives in a dingy little apartment next to some hippie student neighbors who play music too loud, and he's at a shit-looking university with a tiny little staff room full of people who don't really want to be there and don't care. And you just, how did you go from that to this? At what point did you just completely collapse as a person in life, and the world recognized that and punished you for it? And why again? Why is this an Indiana Jones film?
Yeah,
I'm not happy about any of this.
When they were filming this shit, wouldn't you have just been like, you're having him in his underpants with his baseball bat being like, you quiet down, you kids, with your music? It's like, you joking? Why is this what you want to do? And it's like, well, that's what old people do.
Not all old people. They're different.
Jesus.
Yeah.
It's like a Simpsons joke. What is this?
I'm not inherently against a movie about an old person, dealing
Of course
with old
not.
age and how much it sucks. But like Indiana Jones is one of those like James Bond type characters where it's like a male, fantasy adventure guy, where it's like there's an alignment between you as an audience member and the character of like wanting to go on the adventure. And then when you're greeted with old Indy who doesn't want to do anything and is depressed, it's like a cock slap, Like
it's because Indiana Jones is firmly rooted in Saturday morning serials, which is rooted in pulp, which is it's alpha male stuff, which is stuff Hollywood just doesn't believe anymore. They don't they think any kind of masculinity is toxic now.
Yeah, Indy figures out she's lying, and just as he does, all of the bad people arrive. And you start to really think, like, so motivations, they want the dial, the bad guys. The CIA lady seems to want Indiana Jones because she wants to ask him about the dial.
But she also knows who Shaw is as well.
Yeah, but they're after Shaw. They're not after Indy. They're after Shaw.
They seem to not recognize, though, that she's there. She's got the dial. Jones is basically irrelevant now. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's capturing him doesn't really do much for the mission. You got to get her, and she is within reach. She's exited a very obvious way. They chase her on foot. We'll get into how they fucking lose her. It's a bit of editing magic. But yeah, so this is the first instance of Helena locks the door behind her. She could easily have locked it once Indy got through, but she chooses to ditch him with all these people that she knows may very well kill him.
She leaves him to die.
So we know very little about her, and it's funny how the film tries to argue, because this is the first of, I want to say 3 instances where she leaves him for dead.
Yep.
Yeah.
She sucks. She's awful.
Yeah, that's immediately what I thought. It's like she just locks him in and runs away. It's like, oh, fuck you. I hope you die.
Yeah, and
She
you might be like, yeah, but they
doesn't,
barely know each
but-
other. It's like, fucking goddaughter. She knows that
Yeah.
he would have saved her dad's life several times. What the hell is this?
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm going further than she's an asshole. I actually think it's just weirdly out of character. Why would she do this to him?
Yeah, it's like, oh, there's these people that want to probably going to shoot you because, well, they just shot 2 people before they came in. And now they get in there and then just stop shooting, by the way. But, you know, that's
Is
just
there
how
an
it is.
argument? I mean, this is just
As-
a reach and devil's advocate, but is there an argument for, well, she grew up without her father because her father went mad because of something that he and Indy found, and so Indy in her mind is associated with her father's death, and
They
so
do a
that's
bit
why
of,
she's amoral at best?
They do a bit of Marvel-type writing where they try and make a character a worse piece of shit by inventing bullshit. Like, later on, she mentions how if only there was a father figure that could have taken care of her when her father died, implying that Indy was like an absent father to her.
They tried to make it Indy's fault too.
And so it's like, yeah, maybe they are going for that angle, but what the fuck? They invented her for this film, and now they've invented that he abandoned her.
It's the same problem that Secret Invasion, but
Yeah.
which is terrible by the way, is having, where they've invented this new history of Nick Fury's like making a massive mistake, like this crazy, like promising something and then failing to deliver on it
Yeah.
for 30 years to then
Oh, I
shit on
know.
him for this thing that was invented in this show. You invented a flaw that didn't exist before to shit on him.
And
Like,
even if he
Yep.
abandoned her, like as she says, that means you can kill him.
leave him to die, exactly.
Totally.
Like,
And it,
It's-
well, I mean, this
she
is made
doesn't
by
need
Disney.
blocks,
Made by
but
idiots.
it's like she goes out of her way to put him in a position where
Yeah.
he could die. She
It's
didn't have
not-
to lock.
it wasn't like she risks more by taking him with her. It was that she chose to make his life much worse than she needed to.
Yeah, she could have let him
Yeah.
through the door and then left him then, you
Yeah.
know, and just taken off, and he still would have had
Yeah,
a
she could have
chance.
said, "You're on your own. The dial is mine," sort of thing.
Instead of actually locking him in. And like Mola said, this is the first of a few instances of her doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Makes it really
Of
easy to
course.
like.
Indiana Jones, a character that people going into this movie already like, with this new character, she's got way more of an uphill battle to climb in terms of being, you know, like as liked, or in a way that she could be like adversarial to Indy and you'd still like her. And right out of the gate, what were you thinking?
So
Not great. Not great.
So she says, "What would you do if you could go back in time? Witness the Trojan War? Check out on Cleopatra?" And then he says, "I'd stop my son from enlisting." She says, "Did he do it to please you?" "No, he did it to piss me off. And to stop him, he would have told him he was going to die, that his mother would find no end to her grief, and that his father would be helpless to console her, and the loss would put an end to their marriage."
In isolation, I think that scene is really well performed.
I think he does a
don't
really
think
good job
it's
acting it, yeah.
any sense within the context of the characters that they've been built up, or the stories that have previously been told, or everything we know about the people involved in them. I really wanted to like that scene. It's just, yeah, then you have to connect it to, you know, past events, and they
Well,
contradict it.
First of all, it fucking sucks that she's in the scene at all, because I hate that he's sharing this with someone who's such a fucking asshole. But secondly, you remember what she says back to him when he says all that and he's walking away? Anybody?
Can't
I can't remember.
She
Don't
says,
remember.
"You're still wearing the ring."
Oh yeah.
Right.
I actually wanted to
Oh.
kill myself. I was like, "Well, but why would you even point that? Are you dense, woman? Like, he doesn't want to be estranged from his fucking wife. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's the kind of thing that I almost feel like, wait, did you point that out for us? I know he's
Right.
wearing the ring. I could see the fucking ring in several scenes. I get why he's wearing the ring. That's one of the most obvious storytelling things ever. And then, just as an etiquette thing, someone tells you, like, yeah, my whole life got ruined because my son died. Then you go, wow. Still wearing the ring, though.
Yeah. It's like, oh, cool.
She is an idiot. Yeah. Like,
So
of course I know I'm wearing the fucking ring. I put it on.
It makes it sound like if she wanted a response from me, be like, that's true. I guess, you know, in some ways, I don't feel like it's the end of our marriage. How about that?
It's also
Fucking
it's
hideously
not even-
inappropriate.
It's hideously inappropriate. It's not just the death of the character. I mean, that one admission is basically the death of every potentially better alternate story we could have had. And that's what made the scene, I guess, annoying on a meta level, is that there's some considerable merit in having a passing of the torch moment between Indy and his son. If you wanted to carry this thing on, if you wanted to, have a younger hero, you could cast Indy in the role of his father again, as mentioned earlier. You could have his son like falling away from him, and then they have to come back together, and then you could start a whole new series of films with Indiana Jones's son, and it could actually be half decent if people could still remember how to write things. But no, because Phoebe Waller-Bridge, I guess. But no, so kill off the only character who really has potential going forward for the future, and that is the end of the franchise. Though it should have ended years ago anyway. But
and again, it really comes across as spiteful and cruel to me. It's just like you didn't have to kill him. Could have just had him not in the film. Could have recast him. Could have done anything. You killed him. You ended that story. Like, okay. It's like, yeah, but we wanted to make Indy really fucking sad. You're like, right.
Again, like, is Mutt the kind of, from his bare bones characterization in Crystal Skull, I would have thought enlisting would be the opposite of the thing he would do. Because
so I actually thought
based on authority.
A story idea could have been that because Indy had enlisted, he could have Mutt being like, fuck going to war. That shit's stupid. Yeah. And then Indy could be like, no, it's incredibly important to fight for your country. It's the freedoms we enjoy are a result of all the men and women who do this, that, and the other. And he could inspire Mutt to then go to war, and then if he got killed, that kind of backstory would way heavier, right? Like the idea that Indy inspired him to do service for the country that got him killed. But instead they sell it as he did it to piss me off, and then he died.
Oh, so, I occasionally have arguments with my parents and do drastic things like going and joining the army and fighting in Iraq, for example. So that's a thing that just happens.
I mean, it's the only smart thing to do, really.
So yeah, it's all, as was said, I do agree. In isolation, the performance was pretty strong. It's nice to see Harrison Ford acting every once in a while, and then he gets shot in the back because Archimedes has shown up with his two archers, and he's like, "Hey man, the long and short of their conversation is basically just them figuring out that this was always gonna happen, I guess, and that they're gonna make it happen." They're all very chill with this. It's very strange. They even get to the wreckage of the plane, which, by the way, cornucopia of fucking incredible technology. Like I said, I just don't buy that won't change everything forever. But whatever, the film's saying it is. It won't. It's like, oh, okay. But like is said, Indy starts to basically imply like he'd like to stay here. Yeah, I think I like it here. You guys go reverse the coordinates, and you can go back, and you'll be fine.
I want to stay here in this war zone. This is nice.
Well, so this is the thing that I was drawing from it, and I was like, this is really sad that this is what I'm drawing from it, but I'm pretty sure that's the truth. He's not staying here, so to speak. Like, he's not like, I really want to be in this time to go have... He's like, I'm done. I'm just gonna die. And you know what? If I get to bleed out while looking at history in action, that's pretty cool. And then Phoebe Waller-Bridge is like, well, no, we're gonna get you home, and then sort out your bullet wound, and you'll be fine. And this is basically Indy's scene of telling her, like, I don't want to live.
Yeah.
And that fucking sucks.
The most charitable interpretation of it is that he doesn't want to live in the present because he has nothing to live for then, whereas at least here, I think he uses the line, I've studied this all my life, and so...
But he knows he's going to die.
Well, yes.
Like I said, I think the best faith interpretation is that he'd rather die watching this battle unfold than go back and live.
But then she uses against it, well, what do you want, like a slow death with leeches, which would entail, if she's right, then, he might be captured, maybe someone would try and save him, but he would die much more slowly, so it wouldn't be dying just in the course of the battle. That is by far the most likely outcome.
I assume that was her saying, like, the absolute best case scenario, because either he's going to bleed out, like, now, or he's going to bleed out soon, or he would just be killed. I don't see how he's going to be able to survive this.
No.
Like, even if he had everyone trying to save him, I'm not sure they can save him from that bullet wound. That's going to be tough.
No. Also, the Archimedes doesn't survive this. Yeah. Although the film seems a bit unsure on that point, but he's supposed to die in this battle. And yet, apparently he has time to finish the dial and organize his tomb to be built in the place where they have to go and find it later. I'm not sure the film really allowed enough time for that to happen, but... On Indy, I don't know. I think, maybe they are coterminous. It is, I want to stay in history, and that does entail death, basically. Maybe you're right.
I think he's so very at peace with dying.
Because every single Indiana Jones film, he's totally willing to essentially lose the treasure, walk away from it, walk away from the thing that he'd been seeking because it's not worth it. And now here, the final time, after having 4 times made the right choice to let it go, to not look at the Ark, to let go of the Grail, and then he just decides, oh, I'm just going to stay here. You know, like it's just.
Yeah.
So yeah, he says.
I think he would like decide to stay if like he was so thoroughly convinced that he wouldn't be able to make it work with Marion. But then at the end, all it takes is her walking through the fucking door, and then it's like fine again.
Then then you've got the whole time problem, because if he decides to stay, even because of for that reason, well, he won't ever live in the present. So basically, it means that he will die or cease to exist rather in one timeline in order to exist in this timeline. And so he has nothing worth living for in his actual life timeline. I don't know about that. I think really the most tragic thing of all, though, is that he's never convinced otherwise. He doesn't almost fall for temptation and then see the light afterwards. He's perfectly willing to accept this and is just yanked out of it by somebody else because he never makes the moral realization himself.
Speaking of which, the line is, get on the plane, I'll be all right, I need to do this. And then she says, so do I, and punches him. And I happen to know, Billy Robert Bridges' comments on this moment in the film, she says that it was really funny.
Well,
but the thing is, a lot of people apparently thought this was funny. I'm aware of audiences that laugh at this moment.
I have seen audiences laugh at this moment. All 3 of them who were in the audience on the thing I watched laughed at it.
So maybe because it was so fucking dumb. Sure.
I just it's really wild to me because I was just fucking annoyed.
I think I genuinely think Marvel movies have ruined the way that people like, because you often see where people there have been a few instances where people laugh at something that was clearly not funny, but it's almost like they've been conditioned by Marvel movies that they're meant to be laughing every now and then.
Look,
when I saw it, I was like, ugh. Okay, I guess.
To me, it's this like fucking tragic, broken old man basically saying, just let me die with something I'd enjoy. And then she's like, fuck you, knocks him out and drags him back to hell, which is what he hates. You know what I mean? And then like, that's funny. It's like, good God.
Also, I guess they somehow managed to get him back on the fucking plane in time. Do a lift off, get through the portal, even though they said it's gonna close soon. It's like, no, that's not gonna happen.
Really aren't that bad. They're kind of fine.
Yeah, I didn't like the time jump from the punch cut to black. Then he wakes up.
It's back in his fucking apartment. Yeah. How long has he been knocked out?
Yeah, I wanted to see how they got back,
dude.
If that's what they're gonna do. Yeah.
Yeah. So he wakes up, and he's miserable. And he says, you should have let me die, basically. He says stay, but you know what he means. And then she's like, I couldn't do that. And he's like, why not? And she says, for starters, you'd have changed the course of history.
Oh, we're done.
Then he says, is that a bad thing? Just like...
oh, for fuck's sake.
I mean, there are some pretty major implications generally when you change history. It's pretty unpredictable.
Yeah. Indiana Jones might be one of the... main people I would ever pick from fictional characters who would never want to go back in time and change shit.
That was his whole moral dilemma with the Nazis trying to use the Ark for a weapon, or the Nazis trying to use the Holy Grail to give them eternal life in the present. It was this idea that, yes, the past is the past, myths are myths, artifacts are artifacts, they belong in museums because we shouldn't be using them today. But also, as far as this film goes, if have they already figured out themselves that this was essentially a closed timeline loop, because they know that Archimedes gets the watch to get the dial to be made, which means they must always have gone back. But if they know it's a closed timeline loop, then they must already know that what they've just done is always what happens, and Indy could never have stayed there.
But at the end, something that's really confusing is that at the end of the film, he's got the completed dial and the watch like on his table, so they didn't even leave it with like Archimedes. So I don't even understand, like, if it was a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Do they leave the watch on the corpse of Jürgen? Because I know she has the line, he has to make that himself, by the way.
About the dial, yeah.
And so that means they are using pieces of ancient, futuristic Nazi technology to create technology. Oh, God, it makes no goddamn sense. Someone
in chat just highlighted this, and I haven't really got a counter for it. Is that, so... How is it that Phoebe Waller-Bridge has concluded that Indiana Jones doesn't die here in terms of how this works, but all those other guys definitely did? Like, she's like, you stay here, it'll fuck everything up. But all those other people and the crashed ship, she even says, like, you can't have the dial because that'll fuck everything up. It's like, woman, if we're talking about that, like, it's already fucked. All of it is.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's what I was trying to point out earlier. So
But if
there's
Indy-
already so much new stuff here.
But if he bled out on the way to the airplane, just fell over, and he was actually just, brain dead, heart stop, whatever, it's just like, oh, I guess that is
fine.
what happens then. Okay.
And then again, you already have like all the clothes. You have the plane there. There's gonna be some kind of jump in technology for whoever's gonna check that shit out.
And now, before we go further in what the movie is, I just hate the fact that you actually have suicidal Indy, specifically because he thinks he's worthless at this point. That sucks.
Well, and just that Indiana, he has no capacity to essentially facilitate this growth himself.
Yeah,
None of it
he
comes
can't.
from him.
It sounds like he's lost any meaning in life. What the fuck?
Like, as if he didn't derive meaning from his work.
There's so
As
much
if
he
that
derives
wasn't a
meaning
huge
from,
aspect
but he's
of
like
what
this
he derived meaning from.
despondent hobo person that just doesn't care about anything.
He seems to have unlearned a lot of lessons that he learned over the original trilogy.
And
And
anyway,
again, just to emphasize, how lame is it that he doesn't even he isn't the person to essentially facilitate the resolution of his own story. He doesn't get to do it.
Oh,
She
well,
does.
yeah. So, but I don't even like the answer to the question the movie posits, right? So he asked the question, who am I here for? Then the door opens and Marion comes in. It's like...
Yeah, and this is her just showing up right at the end of the film as though it wasn't even planned at all.
Yeah, this is something that they make explicit. It's like, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, you were the one that set all this up. Wow, she told Marion to come here. She's told Marion that Indy is back. That's apparently what she told her. Like, do you understand what's happening? Like, they had what is essentially the bigger parts of the divorce because Indy wasn't good enough to console her when their son died, so they split. And now this fucking idiot who has no idea what's going on between them just told Marion, yeah, Indy may have actually been suicidal to the point where I had to knock him out to prevent him from killing himself, but he's back. Do you know how much that annoys me? Like, you have no fucking clue what's going on between these two people. You have no business putting them together like fucking action figures and then congratulating yourself. Like, imagine Marion came in and said, like, she said you were back, and then Indy's like, what does that even mean? And then she's like, let me guess, she lied just to get me in here. You don't want the divorce, do you? You're gonna run this out? Like, they have, like, a horrible fucking fight in the middle of the end of the movie. Like, and then Phoebe Waller-Bridge is just like, wow, why didn't that work? I'm so confused.
Everything is chill, even though nothing has fucking changed for
Nothing
them.
changed. Yeah, nothing.
Doesn't even respect its own, like, insane, stupid retcons. It's like, these two had such a rocky relationship, they fucking broke apart. But now Phoebe Waller-Bridge said, get back together, and so they did.
So they did.
That was his line earlier when she says you could change history, and he says, and that would be a bad thing because he's for some reason decided that history is so irredeemably awful that any change would be better. And now he's expected to make do with the fact that all it takes is somebody else to say to Marion, come back. I guess they were trying to pay off the adventure line from earlier. So Indy has been on an adventure. The fact he's been on an adventure means that he is bad. I know that even that doesn't make any sense. That's a reach. No, I can't. I guess the only thing we're very, very lucky about is that we've got Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character who lacks a father, who is redeeming Indiana Jones as a father figure and bringing Marion back. And she doesn't end that by saying, my name is such and such Jones. That's something. At least she hasn't done identity theft.
I guess, we got some other movies to compare to on that front, but I don't even like that answer to the question. It's like, who is Indiana Jones here for? And there's like Marion. It's like, that's not what it shouldn't be that Indy will live because Marion is here. It should be the fundamental. It should be like, I should exist because I am a meaningful person. I can add to the world. I enjoy it here. I have friends. I have a job that I find meaningful. I enjoy understanding history. I love the influence that all these people had on my life and the life I live. No, it's just, well, you could get back with that on and off girlfriend.
Yeah, like it really is not like a resolution that is derived from core aspects of Indiana Jones as a character.
Shit. And I hate making his life is now about Marion. It's like, what? She was definitely important.
It was already a problem with Crystal Skull,
Yeah.
like sort of retroactively giving like her way too much. But this film gives her even more, even though she is less of a component of the story. She's only in it for like 2 minutes.
Well, yeah, because someone just said on and off girlfriend he married. It's like, yeah, that's Crystal Skull's stupid baggage.
That's Crystal Skulls. That's not The Last Crusade, which is the canonical ending of Indiana Jones.
Absolutely. Not even close.
It is. They rode off into the sunset. That's the end. None of this is. This is all a fever dream.
It's done.
It's exactly. Yeah.
Burn it in the fire. And
I think that if Mangold heard everything I just said, he'd be like, no, that is the point. You see, we show Marion, then we show Sala, then we show the kids. Remember earlier in the film, he said that the kids were learning a lot and learning well, and the Indies the reason that they were able to get over here and that they respect American and Egyptian culture and history. The point is, all of these people are positively impacted by Indy, and that they're all the reason that he should stay. They're all the for you is answered by not only all of these people, but then think about it, it's all of us. We appreciate Indiana Jones. He's a great character. He's inspirational. Blah 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 blah. And all I'd have to say to all of that is, you fucked up. If that was your actual fucking goal, holy shit. And why the hell didn't you have Indy figure this out himself? Why did you have Phoebe Waller-Bridge explain this to him and set it up
somebody
for him?
else? Why not somebody else? So let's say, Salah's around and he keeps in touch with Indy and he knows he's really depressed and he knows what Marion means to him. So why doesn't he just tell Marion, look, Indy's really depressed, and then she turns up and none of this happens? Because for this to work, then Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character has told Marion that Indy is back. That makes Marion surely quite a self-absorbed, if not completely selfish person in saying that I'm not going to be a part of this guy's life unless he is go get him, up and at him, and the kind of guy I remember. She's not actually going to take any agency in that. She's only going to come back if she's told that he's already fixed. So what does that say about her character? What does it say about Salah's character that he hasn't kept in touch enough to know how miserable Indy is? What does it say about Indy that he doesn't recognize what it takes to fix how miserable it is? Like, none of these people come out well from this at all. Every single person, even the ancillary characters, are badly reduced by this story.
Yeah, and I'm inclined to completely agree. I think it's kind of gross, like the whole thing, and how important these relationships should be, and how much baggage and history there is, and how little Phoebe Waller-Bridge specifically would understand about any of these people, and yet she's considered by the end of the film as like the heroic linchpin that brings all of it together. Like, ew.
Like, really? Come on.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna go have ice cream with the family while they have sexy times
reunite.
or whatever the indication.
Well, yeah, they
I've
just
never
reunite,
met, by the way.
reunite instantly, like in 30 seconds, because they do where does it hurt? Yeah, and then they do it, and then that's the end of the movie. Like, it is short, guys. Like, it's really short, and then it's over.
Don't worry, we spent loads of time on bullshit action scenes and a bunch of padded walking around, but when we have Marion and fucking Indiana Jones themselves, like, trying to reconnect, the film can't wait to hit the credits.
The last time that you're ever going to see this character, the end, as they've decided for Indiana Jones, and they just race past it. That had to be a reshoot, right?
Oh, it feels so much like a reshoot. Nothing about that scene feels like it belongs with the film that preceded it.
I don't think they had an ending.
Nowhere near it.
And then they were like, this will work.
When it happened, it's like, oh, why would we have what? Why?
Isn't that an unbelievable sort of statement to have? I don't think they had an ending for the ending of Indiana Jones, the film that they fucking made with the explicit goal of it being the ending of this series.
When the cost of $300 million.
$300 million, and what's its opening domestic? $60 million, so it's going to fail. It's going to fail spectacularly.
Miserably.
Yeah.
Hello, you just listened to a segment of the podcast Every Frame a Pause, or EFAP. Hosted by YouTubers Mauler, Rags, and Fringy, and joined by a cycling variety of guests across the internet, they critically analyze media with exhaustive detail while pausing at every single frame. Subscribe to the EFAP channel and catch new episodes on Saturdays, as well as catch their smaller videos reacting to the latest and not-so-greatest movies and TV shows throughout the week. You can also subscribe here to EFAP Highlights for the latest shorts, clips, and supercuts, also uploaded throughout the week. Links to all the relevant channels can be found in the description section below, as well as links to their communities on Reddit and Discord. Thanks for watching.